Morning, everybody. June's arrived. No secret. Manitoba's turning a corner towards recovery. And that's great news for all of us. We're starting to reopen our businesses. We're beginning to rebuild our economy. And that is absolutely thanks to the efforts of Manitobans. Manitobans have brought us to this place, and they can keep us at this place by keeping up the great work and staying vigilant. I'd like to provide some updates on initiatives we've taken to assist Manitobans in this unprecedented time. I'm proud to share with you that more than 4,800 businesses are receiving their GAP funding of $6,000 through one of the most generous support programs in the country. We've paid out nearly $29 million so far to small businesses as they look to reopen on the road to recovery. And I would just urge Manitobans to realize that nobody is working harder to make this province safer than our small business people and their employees. They know they depend on you and they rely on your business and your support. And so please give them your business and give them your support. Do so safely, but understand that they are in it with you and they want to make sure that you have a safe shopping experience when you support their businesses and so on. So please think about that, and if you've been like many Manitobans, if you've been hesitant or resistant to get out and about too much because you're concerned about your health and well-being, realize that you have an ally in the small business people and the workers of our province who care very much about protecting your health and well-being, and they will do that while they're offering you some wonderful deals and some wonderful services and opportunities to shop. The Manitoba Economic Support Centre has spoken to well over 100,000 businesses now, and also not-for-profits, charities, other community groups, to let them know about the GAP program and other assistance available through the federal government. We'll be having a Zoom call with a significant number of Manitoba small business charities and nonprofits later today to get more of their perspectives and to see where we can go in terms of additional potential supports to make our programs work better for them. We want to do everything we can to make sure that Manitobans are supported during these unprecedented times. Your government is also supporting, as I've mentioned, high school and post-secondary students in finding employment in the private and the nonprofit sectors as well. Through the Summer Student Job Recovery Program, more than 960 employers have now applied for a wage subsidy for over 2,100 student positions so far. More work to be done, but that's a great start. And that's nearly $11 million that the government is offering in financial support to get our young people the opportunities to get back to work and to get that valuable work experience that we all benefit from. And we're ready to do more. Since we launched our student jobs application just last Thursday, we have seen more than 5,500 job applications, and that number is rising. It rose by over 500 just yesterday. So I encourage small business people who may be considering beefing up their staff over the summer to consider hiring a summer student. We'd love to help you by covering 50% of the costs, up to a maximum of $5,000 per employee, and we'd encourage you to consider doing that, whether you're in business or not. If you'd like to employ a summer student, this is an opportunity for you to get some support and encouragement from the government and to help a young person, a fellow Manitoban, make their way in life. Today we're announcing additional steps to help rebuild our economy, and our economy's progress is central to our preserving our health and our well-being, because it's that economy that funds all the social programs and supports we're able to offer. Supporting our municipalities is also important, and our announcement today does both these things. We're investing $33 million in damage prevention and climate resiliency projects. It's important to understand projects that are not just shovel ready, they're also shovel worthy. And I'll give you a little bit more detail on this. I should say we did announce an investment, somewhat smaller investment, last fall, and now we've added to it. And so today, since we announced that investment, we've consulted extensively with municipalities around the province and some stakeholder organizations as well to identify what their top priorities were. Nous investissons 33 millions de dollars, une augmentation de 10%, dans des projets de prévention de dommages et de résilience climatique. Depuis que nous avons annoncé cet investissement l'automne dernier, nous avons consulté les municipalités et les organisations d'intervenants pour déterminer leurs priorités. These projects will improve the capacity of provincial infrastructure to adapt and withstand natural disasters, extreme weather, environmental changes. 16 million of these dollars will help create a flood-proof route from Winnipeg to the United States border at Emerson. And we all know too well that parts of Highway 75 end up underwater every few years. To give commercial traffic an alternate route, we'll pave Provincial Road 246 from the Morris area to Aubigny. That means Manitoba can stay open for business in times of high water, and we can keep goods moving from the United States and to the United States. We've also committed to 17 million additional dollars of investment on 6 shovel-worthy, shovel-ready projects that will help build Manitoba's climate resilience. St. Mary's Road in the RM of Montcalm is often damaged by spring flood waters. This will help improve this stretch of road south of PR 217 to build it up to better withstand high water. Other projects include pump house expansions in the RM of Rhineland, berm construction in St. Pierre-Joly, upgrades to the Elkhorn Lagoon and the lift station, Kenton Supply Wells generator backup in the RM of Wallace, and downtown drainage upgrades in Altona. We are funding, your provincial government is funding 100% of these projects to help support the long-term sustainability of our communities. This is another way that we are helping our municipal governments weather the storm from this pandemic. We are also letting you know today that we have additional funding available for capital region projects, and we'll continue to work with our stakeholders. By the end of June, I anticipate that we will have compiled a list of additional project priorities from the capital region, and we'll have more news for you this summer on that. The key to our turnaround is going to be strong economic recovery. And Manitobans will get there by sticking to the fundamentals, not only to save lives, but to allow all Manitobans to get their lives back and get back to work. La clé de ces redressements sera une forte reprise économique. Et les Manitobains y parviendront en respectant les principes fondamentaux, non seulement pour sauver des vies, mais pour permettre à tous les Manitobains de retrouver leur vie. Together, we're going to beat this thing. Thank you. Look forward to taking your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. A reminder to our reporters on the line, you will have one preliminary question and one follow-up question. Up first this morning from CJOB, Clay.
Mr. Premier, we're still on Pump Day regarding the opening phase 2, which began Monday. What sort of feedback are you getting regarding the restaurants, the gyms, the bars that have reopened? Is it positive? Is it on the fence? Is it too early to say?
I think it's, Clay, I think it's been really good. I think that I did a little bit of a mini driving tour just to check things out, and the feedback I'm getting from others is the same as what I observed. Manitobans are getting out there and enjoying our beautiful spring weather, and they're doing it while they're doing some shopping. I see some lineups, and I see that they're longer than I had seen at some of those stores in the past. So that's encouraging, I know, for the small business people and people who work in those businesses. I see some other places open that weren't. I see a lot more traffic for sure. But we're always listening to the feedback. The MLAs have been providing feedback on a regular basis as well, and we're hearing good things. So we're optimistic. We feel that we're in a recovery mode, and we just have to remember to keep doing the fundamental things we've been doing to protect each other. The social distancing, the hand washing, the staying home when you're sick. These things are really important as we move forward so we can sustain our recovery.
Have you been to an indoor restaurant yet?
I haven't, Clay, but I expect that there's going to be a number of Manitobans that will want to do that. With this weather, though, I'm expecting those patios are going to have a lot of business. And as I said earlier, I encourage Manitobans to safely get out there and enjoy the outside. We know this has been a real hard time for a lot of people. And we know that the mental health issues are very real for lots of folks too. And so we're looking forward to helping, as a government, helping people get their lives back as much as we can, knowing that some of the things that we have to do differently are going to be a challenge. They need to continue to be followed. Those practices that have kept each other safe and particularly, frankly, have protected our seniors need to be followed. And so we want to get our lives back. We want to get back to a sense of normalcy, and we can best do that by remembering these fundamental things have to be the new part of our new life.
From the Winnipeg Sun, Josh.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. This is Josh Aldridge with the Winnipeg Sun. This funding, is this in addition to the infrastructure funding that was announced about a month ago, or is this part of that funding? And if it's not part of that funding, has the rest of that funding been announced to this point yet?
Yeah, we've got a commitment of $500 million, $500 million we're going to be putting into infrastructure. This is in addition to that. That funding's in negotiation right now. Our share will be $500 million, and that's in negotiation with the federal government as our partner. And so things like the Northside Sewage Treatment Facility that we've already committed tens of millions of dollars to. We're looking to add a significant provincial investment to that and hoping that City of Winnipeg will be partnering with us and the federal government will partner with us on that one as well, because cleaning up Lake Winnipeg's it's a big deal. It's a priority project for this provincial government.
And also, you talked about the province opening back up. Why is the legislature shutting down now for the summer? Regardless of the NDP blocking the legislature and moving bills around the time of the budget, would this not be an opportunity for the legislature to make up for some of that time that was lost during that period and to get some of these bills through the legislature?
Well, our legislature's actually sat more than all but one other legislature in the country of Canada. And I should note that normally the legislature lifts at this time of year. I would also note that the federal government, with the support of the NDP federally, lifted the House of Commons a month early. So compared to what's happening federally, I'd say, and they have their own reasons for doing that. In fact, the NDP Chief of Staff, Jennifer Howard, who is a former minister in the previous government here, said they're quite pleased with the deal they've reached with the federal government. So the NDP in Ottawa are saying it's fine to lift the federal House a month early. We're lifting on schedule, having met more than 9 other provincial legislatures. I don't think the argument works very well that we're doing anything but being accountable here. We're facing the challenges of a pandemic. We're doing it effectively, thanks to Manitobans. But the government's done a lot of things right, and we're going to continue to learn through this process. We've now got to focus on getting our province back, and that means getting our economy back safely, and that's where our target's going to be for the next few weeks.
From CBC Radio Canada, Thibault.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. A year ago, the missing and murdered women and girls inquiry settled its report. And earlier, many are saying that both provincial and federal governments have not done enough to address the issues in that report. And just interesting, what's your response to those concerns?
I'm sorry, you clicked out on me, and I'm not sure of the issue you want me to address, so I'll just ask you if you could just repeat your question for me.
Sure. A year ago, the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls inquiry covered their report, and now there are a lot of people that are saying that both provincial and federal governments have not done enough to address the issues in that report. What's your response to those concerns?
Well, I think I've spent a lot of years advocating on behalf of and in partnership with Indigenous people on many issues, not least of which was I played something of a role in pushing forward the idea of equal property rights for Indigenous women on reserve. So this has always been an area of priority to me, and I think to our government as well. The issue of rapidity or progress, I think, is one that all of us can agree needs, more should be done, more could have been done. We'd like to see more done because we see the disadvantages that Indigenous people generally face in our country, and we also see, in particular, the heartfelt, horrible experiences that a number of Indigenous families have had to endure, and Indigenous women in particular. So we've taken a number of initiatives as a government. Our work through our gender-based violence committee continues. We've got additional outreach that's been done. In particular, I'd single out our Minister, Eileen Clark, for her tremendous efforts on this, and also Kathy Cox, our Minister in charge of the status of women, and her predecessor, Rochelle Squires. All of them and many, many others in our government have been reaching out and engaging in, I think, some very meaningful consultation. We're going to be developing, in partnership with Manitoba's Missing and Murdered Women Committee, an engagement strategy to further intensify our efforts going forward. And so there are sincere efforts being made, never as fast as I think many of us would like, but nonetheless, those efforts are there and they're real.
And regarding the announcement today about the 6 projects that's going to get to 17 million, I'm just wondering, how were they chosen? What were the criteria to choose those ones?
Good question. The priorities here were for climate resilience and for projects that could benefit the economies of our province and those areas, of course, as part of our province. So, for example, the largest one, the diversion, if you can call it a diversion, to allow major truck transport to continue to go Canada-US is one example of that. These are projects that will assist in creating even more opportunities, even more investments in these areas and in the province of Manitoba. Good projects. So I would emphasize to Manitoba taxpayers, many of whom are concerned about the high amount of spending that's going on across provinces and country and our country right now, to understand this is not about just throwing money at a temporary problem to create jobs. This is about investing in a solution that creates jobs. And then something that with these projects and many others that'll follow, that will pay over time, not just cost, but they will pay. They will have a good return on investment for our future. I know many Manitobans would want to know that because they're concerned about high debt levels and high spending levels right now, jeopardizing our ability to hand a better, stronger province and country to our children and grandchildren.
From CBC Manitoba, Bart.
Hey, Mr. Premier, what's the rationale behind the backup flood diversion truck route versus building up Highway 75?
Oh, yeah. No, good question, Bart. The Highway 75, the way it was originally designed, to upgrade it, you would have to do an additional 6 to 8 bridges and disrupt traffic for a significant amount of time. I'm sure Chris Lawrence over at the Heavy Construction Association could give you the breakdown, but what this diversion allows is for the occasional need that we hope an occasional flood would provide of an alternate route for our big trucks at a far lower cost and far more, frankly, expeditiously to address the issue in the event we have a flood in the next 2 or 3 years.
Okay, thanks. And just a completely different topic. The phrase "all lives matter" is often used as a racist dog whistle. You used that phrase yesterday. Do you mind explaining why?
Yeah, I didn't realize at the time, Bartley. I've obviously not intending, and if you listened to my comments as I know you did, you know it wasn't intended to be an offensive comment. But I regret the fact that people would interpret me saying that all lives matter to be a racist comment, but I understand others do say it in that manner for that purpose. I certainly didn't, and I think you would have a tape of my comments so you would know that. We're in the middle of a pandemic, for example, where clearly I think everyone would agree that using those three words in the context of a pandemic was quite legitimate. And so I've been preoccupied, as I guess one could understand, with that and the COVID response. And so I believe what I said was something like, of course, all lives matter, but we need to support protests against racism. And I think that would be a fair repeat of what my intention was. So I regret the fact that that phrase is used by others in a different way, but I would be a little bit, I think, obliged to clarify I certainly didn't mean it in that way, as you well know, and as all of the media would know.
From the Canadian Press, Steve.
Steve Lambert from the Canadian Press. Premier, you gave us an update on the take-up of the programs such as the Gap Protection Program, 29 million so far out of potential 120. If the take-up rate is low, are you open to expanding that program, expanding other programs that that might help people during the pandemic? Because it seems like the province may not be out of pocket as much as it might seem.
Yes.
Okay, and the program you announced yesterday was aimed, as the federal government initially announced it, aimed at low wage earners. Are you open to expanding that program to cover people who might earn higher wages, such as nurses and some of the groups that were mentioned yesterday earn over the threshold?
Only if there's insufficient take-up by the middle and low-income earners would that be done.
From CTV Winnipeg, Charles.
Hi, morning, Premier. Charles LaFave, CTV News, Winnipeg. One of the few things that came out yesterday, the powwow that was scheduled in Lake Manitoba First Nations powwow, they have canceled that. You've been fairly vocal in the last little bit about holding it. Your thoughts on their decision to postpone their powwow till a later date?
Well, I don't know about postpone. My concern with any organization or any club or any group, regardless of whether it's Indigenous, non-Indigenous, an ethnic organization, cultural, it doesn't matter to me. We're all in this together. Follow the public health rules. Follow the public health rules. Dr. Roussin is a thoughtful person leading this exercise. He may have more to say on this, but personally, I just want Manitobans to know that we're going to recover, but we're only going to do it if we're disciplined in following the public health orders, and they apply to all of us all the time. So I've asked the Prime Minister to get his minister to sort out his communications so that he doesn't confuse people and tell them that they can ignore public health orders in our province anymore. I don't want that. No other Premier wants this, by the way. This was raised on the call last week. So we need to be consistent here. COVID knows no boundaries. COVID affects all races. Nobody has immunity to it. And we just don't need a repeat of this because people are watching, and if you make an exception for one event, then you are going to start getting demands to make an exception for another and another and another, and pretty soon there'll be hundreds and thousands of events that people want to hold, and quite understandably, we want to celebrate our culture. We want to enjoy the time that we have here together with each other safely. But the fact of the matter is there are rules to follow, and they are the law, and they need to be respected, and they certainly don't need to be disrespected by a federal minister.
Thank you. And just to follow up, have you seen any concerns with regards to the first couple days of reopening since you've been out and about in observations, or have you heard any concerns from people or people in your cabinet, ministers, anything like that, members of the public?
Yeah, certainly there are people who are still fearful, let's face it, and don't want us to go too quickly. And I think that's totally defensible. I think that there's also an understanding that if we don't reopen our economy, that it's going to be very, very hard for people to support themselves, and then they'll be forced to live off federal and provincial handout programs for a long period of time, and that's not healthy or good for anyone either. So it's finding that sweet spot, right? It's finding that balance so that we can reopen the economy safely, give people an opportunity to support themselves and their families, and do it in a way that is respectful of the needs of others to be protected. That sweet spot's what we're after. And I think right now, according to Leger poll released yesterday, outside of Atlantic Canada, I think we're the second most supported by the people in Manitoba in terms of any province, believing we're doing a real good job on this. So thank you to those who agree with that, and thank you to those who don't. Just keep abiding by the fundamentals. We'll get progress here if we keep working together and we keep respecting each other.
From City News, Stephanie.
Mr. Premier, Stephanie Osuk with City News. As you talk about funding for climate resiliency programs here, I'm just wondering about will there be any funding for proactive green measures like the Green Active Centre, Eco Network, who have had their funding suspended amid the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, that's one organization, an activist organization that's done some work. There are many others, and there are also many green projects, such as cleaning up Lake Winnipeg, that are significant priorities. The green category of investment in infrastructure is a big one for us, and it's a priority one. We've spent a lot of time designing the projects and preparing to advocate for a federal partnership and city partnership in a number of those projects, and I'll be excited to give you more details once the details of that negotiation, or those negotiations, I should more accurately say, can be ironed out.
And just on another topic, you said you might expand the GAP program as we don't see maybe as much uptake as expected. What criteria would you look at including next into that GAP program?
Well, that's part of the reason for the call today, and it's part of the reason that we have asked this newly formed, I announced last week, I believe, the Economic Opportunities Committee that met yesterday to undertake some new projects. I'll give you more detail on the projects probably tomorrow once they're finalized and the members of the committees have been determined and so on and finalized. But we're really excited to get advice, not just from the committee, of course, but from the networks of people we've been consulting with, and Manitobans on a broader basis have been really great about giving us suggestions and advice on not just support programs, but many other issues as well. We'll continue to use those mechanisms to get that advice. I should repeat, too, that we have 2 calls each week regularly with over 50 different groups representing literally hundreds of thousands of Manitobans, frankly, who support them from various aspects of our economy. And they're also an ongoing source of advice and counsel for our government. We've been consulting all along, and we've been acting on the advice we've heard, never to please everyone. The surest way to fail would be to do that, but most certainly to try to do the right things that will support our province recovering and being stronger going forward.
From the Winnipeg Free Press, Carol.
Good morning, Premier. It's Carol at the Free Press. I just had a question about the risk recognition program you announced yesterday. Yesterday, I believe you said there were an estimated 100,000 workers who might be eligible for the benefit, and that works out to about $1,200 per worker. But the check could be higher if more people apply, because yesterday you said if there are fewer applicants, there will be a bigger check per applicant. And today, I think in response to Steve's question, you said you might look at expanding or changing the criteria for the program to allow people earning higher wages if there's insufficient numbers of people applying for it. So I'm just trying to get an idea if there's fewer people than expected applying for it. Will they be getting bigger checks, or will the program criteria change?
No, Carol, I didn't say that. Steve asked me about the GAP program and whether I'd look to expand the criteria so we could allow more applicants for it, and I said yes. Then Steve asked me about the wage recognition compensation, and I said we'd have to wait and see what the number of applicants were.
Okay. So it might not result in larger checks for fewer applicants, but change the criteria to allow for more people to apply? I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah, no, as I said, I think that we have to wait and see what the applications do over the next 10 days, and then I'll be able to answer your questions, Carol. But at this point, I think it would really be speculation. So I'm trying not to do that. I want to encourage all Manitobans who would like to apply for the recognition to do so, and then we'll deal with the issue with more knowledge in our hands than we have right now.
From Global, Brittany.
Good morning, Mr. Premier. Brittany from Global. On the risk recognition program, some people yesterday commending the program, others saying that this really should have been for all people who were at risk during that time during COVID, and some saying, why not go towards that top-up program like we saw in other provinces? And I'm wondering where the mindset was there to go with the recognition payout as opposed to a top-up program.
Well, I think the group that came together, which is a significant number of representatives of various groups right around the province, across largely the length and breadth of what we would consider generally to be frontline workers, had a hard job. And so let's first of all recognize that this recognition design came from them, and that I'll take ownership for what they came up with, but let's recognize also that I asked for advice. I got the advice, we're acting on the advice, and most certainly it won't please everybody, but it's good advice. I want to clarify one thing. One of the union leaders, I think it was Jeff Traeger, said quite rightly, he singled out a comment I made, and I want to clarify that Jeff's right and I was wrong. Jeff said that I said there was a consensus among the participants. That would imply that everybody agreed. That wasn't what I meant to say. And so because there wasn't agreement on every aspect of the compensation plan by all participants in the discussion. That isn't what I meant to imply either. There was definitely diverse views from many, as I say, 20 plus, I believe, groups represented around the table without political influence. And they came up with an agreed plan that most supported, and that's the plan we're going with.
Thank you. And I want to go back to when you spoke a little bit about the powwows over the past week or so, saying that no one group should be above the public health orders. We have a rally that we're hearing being planned for Black Lives Matter on Friday, anticipating that there are going to be many, many people out there in support. Is the province looking to put in enforcement of public health orders of 50 people or less at gatherings at that rally on Friday?
Well, we're looking to have people there to make sure that social distancing occurs, and I think that that's about the best we can come up with at this point in time. I wouldn't want it said that we weren't trying to make sure people were keeping each other safe, and I'm just that much a believer in Manitobans that I think Manitobans will try very, very hard to show their distaste for racist behavior while at the same time showing their willingness to respect each other's health and well-being. And I think we can do both those things at the same time. So I would encourage Manitobans that want to come and support the cause of demonstrating that Black lives do matter, to make sure that they also demonstrate respect for each other's health and well-being by maintaining the proper social distancing. And that is exactly what we're after with that event and with all other events.
From the Brandon Sun, Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. It's Drew Mason with Brandon Sun here. Recently, we've been hearing more and more that the Keystone Center's finances here in Brandon are going to be hurting this year, and big events won't be coming back until early next year. So has there been any consideration given to helping the Keystone Center or other similar types of centers around the province?
Well, I hate to sound cheap here, Drew, but I think we've thrown a lot of support the Keystone Center's way in the last few months, and they'd be the first to tell you that. I understand that the Keystone and every other center that was used to hosting events, let's talk about the convention center here in Winnipeg, or the events that Dauphin's counted on for years in their community, like the Folklorama and the Country Fest, aren't happening. So, get in line, because you're talking about thousands and upon thousands of organizations, groups that are hurt by this pandemic. No government's going to make that mess up. No way. So let's be honest about it. What we're trying to do here is help people get back to work, get our economy back to going again as quickly as possible, safely. And if we can achieve that, and we're doing pretty good at it, we're doing better than most people across the country, most jurisdictions, I'd say, and no victory parade here, no victory lap. I'm just saying, Manitobans have done a great job so far. If we stay focused on doing that job, we're going to have ourselves some progress quick, and then we'll be able to get back and have the winter fair in the Keystone Center.
Thank you. That was all my questions.
Thank you very much. Thanks to everybody for your coverage. Stay positive. We can beat this thing together.